right, Steve. In response to Director Kash Patel's post on X in which he said these FBI agents were deployed to the crowds on January 6th for crowd control, this is your response. You said this is 1,000% BS. No one has had more time in the Capitol CCTV viewing room than me and my partner. We've never seen a single frame of video showing plainclothes FBI assisting uniformed law enforcement officers in either crowd control or protecting the Capitol. Steve, I find this very interesting. Explain to me exactly what you mean here.
Well, I have to take a step back to Thursday when we were the ones that actually broke the story about the 274. I said 275 because that's what a Congress member told me. So we got it wrong by one agent. And of course, on X, you're going to get grief for that too. It's amazing how petty people can be. But what ended up happening in the follow-up to that was obviously Kash Patel coming forward and talking about the actual after-action report that was released that gave them the information about all this. And he talked about how they were deployed essentially or sent over to the Capitol to assist in crowd control. Well, okay, that's fine. That's what they were told. And the agents on the ground were told that they were supposed to go and do this as crowd control. The problem and Joe Hanneman from The Blaze and myself, who worked on this together, we've had more time in the Capitol CCTV viewing room than any other journalist on the planet. And as a result of spending thousands of hours of looking at the video, the one thing that immediately both of us caught was we never saw any FBI agents. Well, then everybody gets mad and says, well, if they're plain clothes or if they're undercover, you wouldn't know that anyway. Well, okay. So you have to define and understand what plain clothes versus undercover versus uniformed FBI, because there's really not such a thing. I mean, when the FBI SWAT teams or their tactical groups go out, they look like military. They've got FBI emblazoned on their ballistic vests, that sort of thing. Sometimes when FBI show up at your door for a knock and talk, they might be wearing an FBI windbreaker or a jacket or a shirt, but mostly there's no uniform. There's no national standard any longer, like in the old Hoover G-Man days when they all had the black suits and the tie, and they look like the Will Smith from the Alien movie. But now that's not how they operate. They show up in jeans or khakis and t-shirts or flannel shirts at your door. But when they are asked to come to an event, and this is very specific, and we have, Liz, we have literally dozens of former FBI, retired FBI, whistleblowing FBI, including some current employees of the Bureau that we talked to for our sources. And when they told us how they would, and I called them immediately, how would you handle it if you were being deployed, or if you were called by the Washington field office and said, you're going to the Capitol for crowd control, there's a riot. First thing they do is they get their ballistic vest. They have their badge. Maybe it's hanging on a lanyard. They wear, if it's cold out, they've got their big FBI jackets, those kind of things. The point is if they're going to do crowd control, they have to be identified. It's still kind of plain clothes. It's not a uniform like the uniformed Capitol Police and the uniformed Metropolitan Police. But this is more important. Let's say that they were absolutely undercover. Well, let's say they were plain clothes. There's only two reasons why an FBI agent would be plain clothes in that crowd. That would be doing surveillance work, counter surveillance work, in which they would have no identifying marks on them whatsoever. Their badges would be.
Wait, is this if they were plain clothes?
What's that?
I said, is this if they were plain clothes they would be doing surveillance work or undercover?
There's only two reasons they would actually be totally plain. When I'm talking about with no identifying markings that they were FBI. Was if they were doing counter surveillance in the crowd, which is common in big crowds. They're looking for bombs, they're looking for bad people, they're looking, they're just making sure that we're safe. They're doing what law enforcement is supposed to do, serve and protect. Then the other reason that they would be absolutely plain clothes is if they were undercover. Now, undercover is a completely different designation. That's an actual operation they're on if they're undercover. Separate training, separate division. Undercover agents are different than the regular line agents are, particularly on a daily basis. But the point being is when we did see these 274 special agents from the Washington field office start arriving on video, they were wearing identifying markings. They were either wearing a jacket, a shirt, they were wearing the ballistic vest. You could see their badges, all of the things that gave away that they were FBI. The one thing they did not do is involve themselves in protecting the Capitol. They did not line up next to the Capitol Police and the Metropolitan Police and hold the crowds back. We never see them clearing the building. We can see some of them standing behind some MPD officers and kind of, just watching as they're doing it, but we never see them actually doing it active in that.